4 kinds of happiness. We have in common one thing that is the driving force behind everything we do, our search for happiness. Everybody looks for happiness, but very few people find it. The first and second noble truths of the Buddha's teaching clearly state that worldly happiness is a myth, yet we never give up hope of achieving it. This is good, as we would otherwise be constantly depressed at not having found what could make us unconditionally happy.
The happiness of the sense contacts. The Buddha spoke about 4 different kinds, or grades, of happiness. The first one arises because of contacts made through the senses. The Buddha compared these to a skinned cow, where flies are sitting on the raw flesh, constantly causing irritation. This is an in-depth understanding of our sense contacts. The Buddha also mentioned sensory contacts as the first means of gaining some happiness. Most people remain at that stage. We can't always get the pleasure we are seeking, and even when we do get it, it escapes us again and again, so that there is no chance of constant happiness through our senses. There is happiness at those times when the sense contacts are pleasant. There is unhappiness when the sense contacts are unpleasant, when the body is uncomfortable or we don't hear the words we'd like to hear, we don't taste what we like, or we smell what is unpleasant, or see sights that we prefer not to see. Nobody avoids such experiences in life. It's impossible to go through the whole lifetime without unpleasant sense contacts.
It's also impossible to go through a whole lifetime without pleasant contacts. We have, one might say, a 50-50 possibility, if we have good karma. Half the time our contacts are pleasant and fine, and half the time they are not. Most people keep on trying to increase the pleasant contacts and hope to make them happen 100% of the time, which is impossible. There's no chance of success, yet most people continue to try. Most of us blame external events when unpleasant or painful feelings make us unhappy. The real reason, of course, lies inside us because of our reactions to sense contacts. The more a person is purified, the more pleasant sense contacts will be. A pure heart and mind will find enjoyment in the simplest things. In a beautiful sky, lovely greenery, a pleasant conversation.
Anyone who has not purified him or herself very much might not even notice these things. They may never look at the sky or the greenery. They may search for pleasant contact through much grosser possibilities. Drink or drugs, indulgence in food or sex might seem their only obvious sources of enjoyment. There is nothing intrinsically wrong with enjoying the pleasures of the senses when they are harmless and refined. The Buddha called them a danger though, because we so easily make them our goal and direction, we try to get more and more of them or to keep them, try to make them permanent, not to lose them. That's what goes wrong with us, because it's an untenable proposition. There's no way that we can make it come true. No sense contact can be permanent. In fact, it would become very unpleasant if that were the case. There's also no way of making sure that we get pleasant sensations. Trying for them takes up our time and energy and leaves no room in our lives for meaningful pursuits.
Our senses are with us. We can't deny them and there's no reason to do so. But it is possible, through mindfulness, to realize that the pleasure we get from them is fool's gold. It glitters, but has no value. The glitter can be enjoyed, but one should not attach any importance to it. Yet again and again problems arise for people, because they can't get what they want through the senses.
Deva happiness. The next step in happiness is called the Deva happiness. But it doesn't mean that we have to become devas, that we have to first die and then get reborn in the Deva realm. That sounds like pie in the sky. It doesn't seem to have any bearing on our present lives. The Deva happiness is the happiness that comes to a person who has cultivated the 4 divine abidings, the 4 emotions of loving kindness, compassion, joy with others, and equanimity. That kind of happiness can be compared to living in heaven upon earth. Such happiness is independent of the 5 senses and only dependent upon our own minds. The underlying condition is the purification of the heart so that it contains only lovingness and compassion. Both lovingness and compassion are qualities of the heart, just as intelligence is a quality of the mind, and they can be cultivated. When that has been done, happiness is one's own. Other people benefit also, but the primary result is one's own happiness, because the heart is totally independent of being influenced by outside occurrences. Whatever people do or say, what happens or doesn't happen in the world, has no bearing on oneself. When the quality of the heart has been cultivated and has been made pure and full of love and compassion, nothing can touch it. There's peace, harmony, ease, and a feeling of security in heart and mind.
This is a far greater happiness than the pleasure obtained through one of the senses. While in itself it does not lead to or have as its result liberation, it is a necessary ingredient on the path. Lovingness and compassion alone don't produce insight. They smooth the waves of emotions. When those waves of grief, pain, lamentation, worry, fear and anxiety, envy and jealousy, dislike and resentment, have finally come to rest, there is a clear reflection without any obscuring ripples in it, like a mirror, the mirror of the mind. That mirror of the mind makes it possible to get a clear vision. Without cultivating these purifying qualities, it's not possible to develop further. It's all very well to understand, to know, and to quote, but it doesn't take one to the end of suffering. The waves of emotion are obstructive. They not only get in the way of clear vision, they even obstruct the vision of the path itself. When there are waves, one can no longer see where one is going. Indeed, one might even forget that one is going anywhere at all.
The happiness of the Deva realm doesn't depend upon rebirth. It's possible right here and now. It's internal work that can be done by anyone at any time. There are no special times such as meditation courses or special people who can do it. This is a happiness, which of itself, without going any further, creates a different kind of life for the one who has done the internal work.
The happiness of concentration. The third kind of happiness is the happiness of concentration that comes from meditation. That too is only possible if one has achieved purification in moral conduct, generosity, and loving kindness in the heart. It doesn't require perfection because that is reserved for the arahant. It does require some expansion of heart and mind. The happiness one gets from concentration is glimpsed often by meditators. But one needs to cultivate such concentration and practice diligently to enter into the meditative absorptions. There are different degrees of meditative absorptions resulting in different degrees of joy, bliss, and ecstasy. They all enable the mind to carry some happiness with it even outside meditation.
A person who can enter meditative absorption and experience that kind of happiness is someone who can find happiness even when the sense contacts are unpleasant. Such people know they can return to the happiness of the concentration, the meditative absorptions, at any time. Knowing that creates a feeling of ease in the heart, because nothing else appears to have great significance. When a person is able to go into the meditative absorptions at will for the length of time they wish, that becomes their reality and not the quarrels and the arguments, inflation and the wars, the future or the past, and all the other things that people worry about. None of that has real significance. The reality lies within the happiness of the meditative absorptions.
The meditative absorptions also prepare the mind. They give the mind not only the ability to be happy, but also the ability to penetrate. The mind that can stand still at will is a mind that has gained strength. The ordinary mind finds it very difficult to stand still. It has a jelly-like quality. It shakes constantly. It doesn't need a trigger, that's its natural mode of behavior. It doesn't have the strength to penetrate the brick wall of delusion. It's not a very good tool, is it? Jelly disintegrates at the slightest contact. A jelly-like mind disintegrates at the slightest blame, at the slightest worry or fear, at the slightest bodily discomfort. A jelly-like mind goes to pieces. What else can it do?
A mind that can stand still is a mind that has the quality of a rock, solid, unmoving. A rock is a better tool with which to penetrate a brick wall than jelly. A rock-like mind isn't going to disintegrate at the slightest impact. It has the strength of a finely honed tool, with which we can pierce this apparent reality in which we live and reach absolute reality.
There are 8 different stages of meditative absorption, and they are like 8 rooms in a house. If one has finally found the front door with the right key and opens it up and goes into the first room, there is no reason why one can't walk into all the other 7 rooms also. It is not so difficult to find the front door and put the key in. The key is called mindfulness of breath, and the front door is found when one continues with determination and perseverance to keep on meditating. One doesn't sit back and say, "That's enough, my knees are hurting," or "What's the use," or "Maybe next life," or "It's too difficult," or any of the many other excuses.
The Buddha said, "A fool says, it's too early. It's too late. It's too hot. It's too cold. I'm too full. I'm too empty." The front door is there for everyone to find. We have the key. We have to fit it into the lock. When we open the door, we find that the rooms in this house are splendid. The splendor is within our own hearts and minds, but at present it's locked up. We have no access unless we create it through meditation. Most people never unlock it because they don't know what the key is, nor do they know that there is such an entrance. We are very fortunate to know the door, and there may already be a small opening through which the light is shining.
When the concentration has been constant for some time, the mind becomes very quiet, and so does the body. Every single moment of concentration is a moment of purification. The defilements that beset us, causing our unhappiness and difficulties, are momentarily laid aside. The more often we lay them aside, the less habitual they become. The more often we can concentrate, the more often we are without them. Having a pure, bright mind then becomes our second nature. Concentration starts out with the experience of pleasant feelings. These pleasant feelings arise because the mind at that stage is untroubled. This indicates clearly that if one were untroubled and